Hello everyone, and welcome back to True Words Aren't Beautiful. I am recording another video the day after I posted my most recent one because I realized I still had some insights, both from events that happened not long after my video yesterday, and also looking through my notes and journal saying, hey, I think this is something I should have said a while back. So, let us start with an experience I had a few weeks ago when I was walking my dogs one morning through the alley. A car came, and while the alley is somewhat narrow, there's enough space for me to step to the side and allow the car to go through. The car drove patiently, quietly, and considerately, just passing by because I recognized it was coming and gave it enough space. Not long after that, not even 20 seconds later, a small motorcycle drove by, blared its horn, asking me to get out of the way even though it had much space, even without me standing where I was. It just wanted everyone to clear the road. So, what I can say about that experience is the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. We have a very difficult way of recognizing how we impact others, or we have expectations about how the world should respond to us. So let me restate what I shared in the last video from the book The Adventures of the Mad Monk Ji Gung. I'll quote that right here, right now. The illness of the body is known to itself. The heart has the cure for the sickness of the heart. When the heart is correct, the body will be at peace. When the heart is out of control, the sickness will be out of control. So I shared this in a social media group that I was part of years ago. In 2015, when I was studying things like Reiki energy healing, I took a class, a level 3 class, and some people might say this means you are a Reiki master. Others say, okay, you just finished all the levels of Reiki, then you have to do teacher training, then you have to do the additional level 4 in order to be a master. Whatever it is, I've seen different schools and different individuals offering Reiki mastery in a weekend where you can get attunement online, not in person as per tradition, for level 1, and then instead of waiting for 6 months and practicing and adjusting to the energy shift, you can pay for level 2 on the same day and do it online. And then some people might even do level 3 right then and there. So you can become a Reiki master in one day if you're willing to pay, or find someone who's willing to be paid to attune you to become a Reiki level 3 master. Can you imagine the problem with suddenly going from nobody to a master in a Skype session or Zoom session now, online? There are even people who pre-record Reiki healings and Reiki attunements on YouTube or on DVDs that you pay, and it's the same video you watch. I am not going to make any further comments. I'm just going to ask you, does that make sense? Is that sensible? Of course, there are some Reiki practitioners who might get defensive and justify that it works because it's divine energy. And I will say, good for you, I will respect that, but I will still reserve the right to question it, especially because by the fruits ye shall be known. And in a situation where I shared the above quote from Ji Gung, I got a very hostile response saying, man, why are you posting this shit here? This is a Reiki group. And I say, watch your response, man. You should be happy for other people and their practices. And he says, this is Reiki, I do business, don't piss off your elders. Hey, if there's anyone who's an admin here, ban this guy. And I'm thinking, for a guy who gets so easily offended, defensive, and angry, I'm not sure that's the kind of person I want to have healing me with energy, let alone being my teacher. But yes, this guy conducts Reiki workshops and conducts Reiki healings in Bangladesh, and of course characterizes himself as a Reiki master. So While it's very easy to just write this person off and say, oh man, this guy's a jerk, I didn't do anything, I am ultimately responsible for my own karma and my own actions, what I say and what I do, not for how someone feels. How easy it would be just to write him off as a jerk, when I should really be thinking, was it the right audience? Should I have shared what I shared? Maybe it's best to keep my mouth shut and have a more selective audience. Because we don't know if there is a person who might take anything positive negatively. And this obsession with being a master is being obsessed with the method and the framework, getting stuck in that. When you're stuck in a method or a framework, you realize that the process is no longer valid. Methods are what you use, the techniques, the tools, as part of your process. The process are the signs along the way, the guidelines of what to expect when you have achieved certain goals. If you identify with the method, then it's the point of religious fundamentalism. You are no longer taking part in the process. So if Reiki is a method towards the healing process, then it is not the end, even if people get caught up in the idea of being a master and having energy healing. If you've ever come across videos for Neigong and Fa Chi, you would say, well, Reiki's pretty basic compared to that. But let's not judge Reiki too harshly, because it helps people that it's meant to help. It is a stepping stone for some, and others can skip that because they don't need it. So let's look at this example of methods with mathematics. So let's say you have a problem you need to solve. You can count on your fingers, you can use your TI-83 calculator. If you know how to use an abacus, you can use that. You can use long division, you can use multiplication tables, or even this cool little method where they use lines. I believe it was Japan that was using that. There are all different methods which help you get to the same conclusion if you're doing it right. But the process through those methods are how we look at your understanding of why and how you reach that conclusion. So, expanding on that analogy, let's jump into other things and look at teachings and interpretations that lead to commentaries and frameworks that express an understanding which creates different processes and methods. So let's look at Confucius for one. Chinese philosophy, where ultimately it's about the cultivation of virtue, respecting traditions and etiquette, social norms, expressing that virtue through those norms and etiquette and rites. There's literal understanding of teachings, and there's the spirit of the message. Because Confucius likes to remind us of our innately good nature, some say in order to practice Confucianism, it requires us to gently remind others of their innate good, and then we will naturally follow what is good, because good feels good. But then there are others who say, no, we're not innately good, we're actually innately wild, we're animals, and we need sharp rebuke to tame our beastly nature. So we need to enforce these rights in an almost militant way. So those are two different philosophers whose names escape me right now, and their own commentaries and understanding of the Confucian philosophy and framework. If you follow one framework, which respects the innate good in all of us, and we just need gentle reminders, then the process basically tells you that it does not require a heavy hand. It's more carrot than stick. If someone is happy and smiling and doing it of their own accord, then they are reminded of their innately good nature. Other times, you basically need a wallop, a whack upside the head with a cane, a spank, or a slap on the wrist with a ruler. Whatever it is, that process is to reinforce it through pain, the stick. Now let's jump into another kind of approach, which is Buddhism. So let's have a reminder of the three different vehicles that the Buddha taught. We have Theravada, formerly known as Hinayana Buddhism, which was the kind of Buddhism for the layman. You could go into a monastery and burn off your karma, learn Vipassana meditation, and focus on your own liberation. All that's important that exists are the teachings of the Buddha, nothing else, no commentaries. Then you're only responsible for your own karma. Following that, you have Mahayana Buddhism, which is not only liberating yourself, but bringing those around you up. And in that particular framework, they recognize different Buddhas, such as Amitabha, or Medicine Buddha, Guru Rinpoche, all sorts of different teachers and teachings. Then finally, you have Vajrayana, which is the indoor discipleship, the secret alchemical methods which help you attain liberation from this illusory world and existence within this single lifetime if you do everything that you are shown, and it's specifically catered to your needs. To best summarize the methods, Theravada teaches you to avoid the poison. Mahayana teaches you how to cure the poison, especially through their rites and rituals, reading sutras, chanting mantras. And it is in your own interest to cure everyone else of the poison. Then finally, Vajrayana is the method by which you transmute the poison like an elixir. And that is how you achieve the elixir of immortality and wisdom. Now, let's jump back and focus on three different schools following the Mahayana framework in Japan. The first one, which I follow, particularly because some of my Vajrayana framework includes Medicine Buddha, and then you also have Amitabha Buddha in Japan, Pure Land. It's realizing we are inherently imperfect and that life itself is a struggle that makes it very easy to fall to our imperfections, our anger, our lust, our violence. And it's even harder to practice Dharma and the teachings of the Buddha, especially the restraint that's necessary to have patience and compassion, especially for ourselves. But through the effort and compassion of a highly realized Buddha like Amitabha, as with other Buddhas, we seek refuge in them to help us be free, because through their Buddha field, they create a kind of heavenly pure land, not necessarily just an afterlife, but by invoking them, we create that same Buddha field around us that can elevate us and help us towards liberation, and help others too. Their biggest critics and opponents are in the Lotus sect, where the most perfect teachings and complete teachings are in the Lotus Sutra, where all of Buddha's teachings are there. And you may recognize it by how often it's invoked in Japanese as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, or in the traditional Sanskrit, Om Sat Dharma Pundarika Sutraya Namaha, which, through the reminders in that mantra, it brings its power to us. The teachings in the sutra remind us of our Buddha nature and provide guidelines for us to achieve liberation for ourselves and those around us. And then finally, we have Zen, where we are responsible for ourselves and our own karma, no one else. We see the wonder in mundanity and the mundanity of looking at things with wonder, detaching ourselves from all the senses, the realm of the senses, all the pleasures and all the pains. They're just phenomena. We look within and take personal responsibility, especially in the beauty of the silence and the emptiness. That silence and that emptiness is what shows us that space inside a bell is what you need for the bell to ring. That space inside a bowl or a cup is what you need to fill it with food or tea. And that space and emptiness inside a home is what you need to be able to live in it, where we need this emptiness and we constantly cultivate the emptiness. And with that emptiness, we recognize that we fill them with emotions and ideas and attachments and suffering. And you can see how this kind of Zen process and framework became very popular for the warriors, especially the samurai in Japan. So you have three different frameworks within a greater framework of Mahayana Buddhism as well. And yet, because each of them have different interpretations, you have many practitioners and students arguing with each other over the superior method. But the truth is, all of them will guide you towards Buddhahood. And when I say Buddhahood, I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean Buddhahood in the sense of being awakened and aware, being free of ego, being free of identity, being detached from this illusory reality that we live in. When you get caught in the method, it's what causes people to take religious, fundamentalist views. It's what causes people to fight, like my Reiki classmate being unhappy with sharing something related to healing. So if you're obsessed with a method, you will never be able to expand your perspective and framework to look at the greater process. You focus on the small cog in the machine rather than the sum of its parts. This is also the trap of being a self-learner, because without some guidelines to recognize signs of development and signs of obstructions and to discern the difference between them, you can quickly find yourself saying that, oh, I'm a Christian, but you don't sound very Christian. You can say, oh, I've converted to Judaism, but you sound like a fundamentalist Catholic shaming everyone for idolatry. The DIY or do-it-yourself culture of the world, especially, is what influences us to pursue these things on our own. Self-empowerment as a response to the dogma and the predators of religious institutions. So it's a natural reaction. But we unfortunately subconsciously model what we observe. So it's better to seek out what is sensible and recognize whether we are uncomfortable with being challenged and criticized rather than if someone is an abuser or narrow-minded. And at the same time, we have to recognize that someone is not necessarily narrow-minded for disagreeing with something that's bogus or abusive. Just like a parent can't say, I'm your mother, I'm your father, do what I say. That's abuse. So, just some food for thought this morning. Anyway, that is all I have to say at this very moment. I will see you again. Thank you for watching.